First of all, if we talk specifically about the presidential elections, October, November 2010, those elections really should not have been held at that time because the conditions did not exist for the holding of democratic elections. And indeed, there are various agreements that the Ivorians had reached that before such elections take place, the country should be reunified, having been split into two in 2002, when a rebellion took place, and the northern part of the country was then occupied by the rebels. And so since 2002, you've had a divided country. In reality, Cote d'Ivoire became two countries, with two armies, two administrations, and so on. And then the Ivorians had decided among themselves that you needed to unite the country first, to demobilize and integrate the rebels into one national army, and that only in those conditions would it be possible to have democratic elections. But unfortunately, many countries, people talk about the international community, put a lot of pressure on the Ivorians to say that they must have these elections, and presumably they couldn't withstand that kind of pressure, the Ivorians, and so they held the elections and produced the outcome that they have. In reality, what these elections did was further to entrench the division of Cote d'Ivoire, and push the country further away from the reconciliation that it needs. So these problems are going to remain. These problems are going to remain, and the challenges will still have to be addressed. Of course, the one other element which is very unfortunate about this has been the involvement of France in this conflict. It's unfortunate because, as you know, this is a former colonial power. And it's inevitable that a former colonial power that comes in like this, and in the end used force to remove Laurent Gbagbo from power, that inevitably people are going to reach certain conclusions. That this former colonial power wants to continue to maintain a hold over its former colony. It doesn't help in terms of the resolution of these problems. I must say also I think the United Nations also mishandled this, because the UN was in Cote d'Ivoire for purposes of keeping the peace, which required that therefore it must be neutral in terms of these contending forces, and assist these contending forces in Cote d'Ivoire to make peace among themselves. But the special representative of the Secretary General of the UN, in this particular instance, really inserted himself into these processes, took on the responsibility of deciding who had won the presidential election, indeed even contrary to the resolutions of the Security Council, which never mandated him to do such a thing. But by doing that, of course, it meant then that once the UN said, no, this one is won, that one is lost, then of course it then had an obligation to make sure that the one that it said had won must then take power. Hence, it used force, in this instance also to remove Gbagbo, in order to ensure that Ouattara takes over. So none of this has helped the Ivorians to address these fundamental issues of the reunification of the country, of achieving reconciliation among its people, of laying the basis for a better and peaceful future for the Ivorians. So I think it's going to be, it remains important that certainly the African continent, the African Union in particular, should remain engaged with the Ivorians to assist them to address these issues of national unity, national reconciliation. Because if that doesn't happen, the civil war in Cote d'Ivoire will resume at some point.